Philadelphia's Week 2 matchup versus the Chiefs is already changing, as out goes a key weapon for the Birds, while the Chiefs are claiming one of their own will play, which might secretly be really good news for the Eagles. Plus how Saquon Barkley plans to expose the Chiefs' defense this time around, Adoree Jackson's final chance, and the dumbest rumor about A.J. Brown that is more impossible than exhausting. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. Only 11 times in NFL history have the two teams featured in the previous year's Super Bowl met the following season, with the winner of that Super Bowl winning the next matchup 7 out of 11 times. And Sunday afternoon in Arrowhead will be, hopefully, just that, and has all the signs of being an instant classic, especially with the latest injury news that just dropped right before kickoff. First off, I actually never heard from the first winner of the Jordan Spector Art Saquon Barkley giveaway, which we've been doing all week long, and so I randomly redrew, and JS Tactical 19 subscriber who commented on my previous video, he is the winner. So JS, follow the instructions in my description box to prove it's you, send me an email, and I'll get this bad boy shipped out to you as soon as possible. Oh, and for everyone else, you can use code ThomasMott10 to get 10% off Jordan Spector's art right now, but I'm gonna give away another one of these exact paintings if you go down below in the comment section right now, drop a like, and correctly predict Jalen Hurts' passing yards, touchdowns, and interceptions. One of you guys is going to hopefully get that right and win another Saquon Barkley art piece. Now, back to the game. Let's start with the injuries. Dallas Goedert, here we go. As expected, once again, did not practice on Friday with that knee injury, making it now 3 full practices without number 88. Philadelphia obviously has right until game time to make the official announcement that he's not going to be there, but I'm 99.9% sure the Birds will be without their number 1 tight end on Sunday. And that's a massive deal. I'm not trying to downplay and say it's not, but I actually think Grant Calcaterra and Kylan Granson can hold down the fort at least for this 1 week. Historically, Casey has actually done a pretty nice job against DG, with Goedert only catching 2 balls in Super Bowl 59 and 6 in Super Bowl 57. Plus, the last date they played in the regular season at Arrowhead, Goedert actually missed that game due to an injury. Plus, with Goedert out, again, not saying it's a good thing, but maybe the Birds' other pass-catching options are going to actually get some balls thrown to them this time around. Now, flying over to the Chiefs' big issue, and they've been trying very hard to lie, really, to everybody and pretend like Xavier Worthy is going to be out there on Sunday, just 1 week removed from his brutal shoulder-separating hit by Travis Kelce. As the past 3 practices, Worthy technically has been out there on the field, albeit with this pretty ridiculous-looking brace. But throw in some cryptic Instagram post, and myself, and I think many people believed, wait, is the Chiefs' top pass catcher actually going to play on Sunday? Well, insert Friday afternoon. And Worthy did practice, yes, but then was officially listed as doubtful versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, doubtful doesn't mean out, but odds are really not looking good. And honestly, I'm at the point where either way, a less than 100% healthy Worthy or no Worthy at all is still going to be a great thing for Philadelphia. Philadelphia definitely did not expect this. A couple days ago, Xavier Worthy was going to miss 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe half the season with his shoulder issue, and now he might play on Sunday. Again, could be a game time decision. Maybe they practice him a bunch and then rule him out the night before, but it looks like they're going to give it a try. And honestly, if I'm Philadelphia and he's actually out there, to me, it's good news for the Birds. A wounded Xavier Worthy who definitely does not want to go across the middle or have any sort of contact on that right shoulder is not going to be very effective. Plus, that takes away a route from an actual healthy wide receiver. Again, maybe Worthy is a lot better than we think. I'm just not predicting him to be anywhere near as effective as he could have been without the shoulder issue. Moving on, and I did not want to talk about this, but I've seen enough of you guys going crazy about the clickbait from both Colin Cowherd and former FS1 and NFL receiver James Jones over the past couple of days, stating that they both expect A.J. Brown to not remain with the Eagles soon, hinting at a possible trade in the coming weeks. And so, Thomas, does this mean there's reporting out there that A.J. Brown, he's upset, or the Birds are trying to trade him, or maybe the Patriots, remember that? They want to trade for A.J. Brown. Is there an actual report? And come on, you guys know there 100% is not. This is 100% clickbait. So obviously, just going to laugh at this, not really worth spending a ton of time here, mainly because, here's the kicker, A.J. Brown's dead cap hit in 2025 alone, if he were to be traded, it's nearly $90 million. So, yeah, that's absolutely not going to happen. The funny part, though, out of all of that is that A.J. Brown himself has said multiple times this week he's not worried about what the Eagles did in week 1. And then how about Saquon Barkley yesterday following up with the perfect quote on contribution over credit in the Birds' entire offensive weapon room?
To me, it's simple. Once you submit to, we play a team sport and you cannot accomplish anything without everyone else, it doesn't really matter. And at the end of the day, whether AJ has 1 catch, whether I have 20 rushing yards, or Smitty don't have a catch, I'm still Saquon Barkley, that's still AJ Brown, that's still Devontae Smith. At some point, we're going to get ours. And that's just the mindset that we're going to continue to have, and whatever it takes to win.
Honestly, I'm just mad I had to talk about that, but you guys asked, and so here we go. Either way, back to the game at hand, where you might be wondering the mindset inside Philadelphia as they get ready to take on the Chiefs team that has got to be hungry to try to exact some sort of revenge for a Super Bowl drubbing, well, you'd be disappointed to hear that at least externally, Philadelphia views Sunday as just another regular season game.
It's just another opportunity for us. That's been my approach on it. We got a lot that we can learn from this past week. We know we're playing a really good team. It's a new team, and we're a new team. But just approaching it with that mentality and just taking really a day at a time with our preparation.
So they beat us too, so you can look at it like that too. So I don't think none of that really matters. I think we just execute. Everybody, of course, everybody's gonna play hard. Everybody's gonna bring it, So,
man, they got a different scheme. They doing things different, and I'll just say, man, they still got Pat Mahomes. As long as they got Pat Mahomes, we always got to bring our best foot forward. That's just any game for us too on the defensive side.
However, I do think Nick Sirianni is definitely correct when he stated yesterday the Chiefs have become a very familiar opponent, kind of like a divisional opponent, and it makes prepping for them just a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, when you play a division opponent, when you play a division opponent, there are certain checklists you go through. Those are like, keys to a certain type of week. Well, one of the things is keys to it the second time you play an opponent. Well, this is a short matter of time. So there's been, since I've been here in 21, there's been 4 teams that we've played every year. And obviously that's the Giants, that's the Commanders, that's the Cowboys, and that's the Chiefs. We played them every single year. And so, yeah, you're constantly looking at those tapes, and you have a plan of what you do when you play a team again, and you go through that process of that. You can expect things that they did successfully for those things to come again in different forms, and you can expect things that they may not have done successfully that they change a little bit, right? That's what you do as a coach. So. We go through our process, but also we know that they go through their process. If that made sense, how I just said that.
Still, in order to succeed and go to 2-0, a few things must change from the Birds' Week 1 performance versus the Dallas Cowboys. First off, very simply, give me less penalties. Like even Jalen Carter aside, Philadelphia committed more penalties in the first half of the Cowboys game than they did at any game last season. Something Nick Sirianni has already been preaching, according to Jordan Mailata, heading into this week.
Good teams learn from their mistakes, and great teams learn from others. And so that is an emphasis that coaching staff make. And we practice those scenarios just out on the field through walkthrough reps. We always get a lot of stick for walkthroughs in the later half of the year, but honestly, we get a lot more reps, and it's just more the mental rep. Because again, it's the things that we can control. Those penalties are things that we can control. So it's a major emphasis here that the coaches make, and so. As leaders, we try our best to uphold that, and it's not perfect, but we try to do our best.
Next, defensively, Philadelphia, you have to stop the run and get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback, as Dallas did have, despite everyone saying they weren't going to be able to run the football, 119 yards on the ground and 2 of their big early touchdowns. Thankfully, if you take away Mahomes running for 57 yards down in Brazil, the Chiefs' 2 running backs in Pacheco and Hunt only had 10 carries for a combined 41 yards versus the Chargers. With Jalen Carter back, this should be a get-right game for the Birds' front 7.
Obviously, not up to our standard. A lot of things to correct, a lot of things to work on, particularly in the run game. I wasn't too proud of, but just a starting point. This is where we're at right now.
And honestly, I'm fingers crossed here, hoping for a get-right game for the Birds' secondary. Most importantly, Adoree Jackson, who despite calls for his benching all week long, will start as expected on the outside once again and told reporters he's reviewed the Cowboys film and thinks he's figured out the correct mistakes to fix before facing KC.
Just bad eyes on a couple plays. My technique wasn't there, and that goes a long way. Once you don't have the technique that you want, your eyes in the wrong place, that'll hurt you. In a couple plays, that's where my eyes weren't in the right place. My technique wasn't there. And it hurt me on a couple plays. So just seeing that and just cleaning up my eyes and my technique and my fundamentals.
He just got to make sure he's a master technician and not let his technique falter. They have good receivers, and if you don't go about your job the right way from a technique standpoint, those good receivers become impossible to cover.
Technically, on paper, Adoree Jackson should be better this week than he was last week because the Chiefs do not have any sort of receiving core close to CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens. Still, I do think he's on a very short leash this week, and if Vic Fangio does not like what he sees versus KC's depleted receiving core, Xavier Worthy or not, maybe a change could happen for the Week 3 matchup coming a couple days from now. Speaking of bounce-back games, I'm expecting Saquon Barkley to actually have a lot of success on the ground versus the Chiefs because go back to the Super Bowl, and that was the one thing the Chiefs did really well all game long, and that was slow down Saquon. But the thing about playing Saquon Barkley twice, especially in 2024, the second time around, he definitely has had defenses figured out. For example, Game 1 versus the Cowboys, he only had 66 yards on the ground. Game 2, a $167. Likewise, we forget Barkley's quiet first half versus the Game 1 Commanders matchup, but his opening half in the NFC title game was one of legend. KC held Saquon at just 57 yards on a staggering 25 carries in the Super Bowl. And with their much degraded secondary this season, will likely not be able to play man coverage and let A.J. Brown and Smitty shred them once again, meaning hopefully lighter boxes for Saquon and a chance at revenge versus Steve Spagnuolo.
You'd be a fool if you're going to let us walk into whatever stadium, whether it's a Link or your stadium, and your focal point is not going to be stopping the run. And if that's the case, we're going to burn you for it. But they did a really good job. We got to do a better job in the little things, including myself, and always starts with myself, especially in the run game. And just get ready for next week and the challenge we have against Kansas City.
Still, in the end, this is Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs. And Mahomes, going into this game, has never lost 3 straight games in a row. That would be last week versus the Chargers, and then obviously 7 months ago versus the Philadelphia Eagles. But Mahomes' poor line play, lack of big play weapons, and Jalen Carter returning, I think means Philadelphia holds on and wins. As long as they keep Mahomes in the pocket and make sure he can't run around like he did late in that Charger game.
And obviously he's got a great connection with Kelce. You know, they've played together for a long time. You know, so just trying to keep him in the pocket as much as we can. You know, not allow him to get out and, you know, create plays with his feet, whether it's throwing the ball down the field or running.
What doesn't need to change, though, is Jalen Hurts and his history versus Steve Spagnuolo. It's really that of legend. 11 touchdowns, 315 yards per game, and a .252 EPA. Whatever reason, whether it's just shining on the brightest stages, or maybe he has Spags' number, Bird's QB1 has historically been fantastic against the Chiefs, and even better against the elite quarterbacks of the AFC. I don't think the Birds have to duplicate exactly what happened in the Super Bowl to win the game on Sunday. They don't have to sack Patrick Mahomes 6 times, multiple interceptions, and just blow them out of the water. But take the mold of that game. Take the mold of that game plan, put some new things in to adjust for the new things the Chiefs are going to do, but just do the same thing in the end. Win by, 7 points, 3 points, 10 points. I really don't care, but I do think Philadelphia is matching up very well against the Chiefs, better than they did against the Cowboys last week. Something I talked about on a very interesting interview I did a couple of days ago with Cole from How About Those Chiefs, the biggest Chiefs YouTuber in the entire world.
What are some weaknesses and just slight concerns even you have on this roster based on some of the turnover and what you saw in the Cowboys game? The caveat to that is it was a divisional game and those get weird. But if you have some slight concerns heading into this game, what would they be? Because we already know, not to be long-winded here, but we already know you've got one of the best running back rooms in the NFL. You have a top 10 quarterback. If you want to argue higher, okay, that's not what this video is for. You got great skilled position players, top 3 in the NFL probably with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. You have all kinds of weapons everywhere. But where are you seeing some potential concerns based on this matchup, if you have any at all?
Well, I mean, first off, I agree with most of everything that you just said. And week 1 is so hard to judge. And I think people go crazy over, we lost week 1, we won week 1. In reality, it takes a full month for these guys to really spin up after not playing in the preseason. The big concern in Philadelphia right now is super obvious. It's the second cornerback slot. It's Adoree Jackson, who reportedly is going to start again, although a lot of Eagle fans are hoping he's going to be benched. He's going to be out there. He's going to be your cornerback opposite of Quinton Mitchell. If there's one big glaring red flag from the entire offseason was Howie Roseman deciding to let Darius Slay go and let Isaiah Rodgers go and put his faith in Keely Ringo, who then lost the starting cornerback job. And now it's Adoree Jackson. And he got really worked against CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens in that opener, which it's CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. I think a lot of Eagle fans are hopeful. A Xavier Worthy-less, Kansas City Chief receiver room will not be as dangerous, but that is the one area, especially on defense, where Bird fans are really, I'd say, very concerned. Every single day I have people DMing me saying, like, when are we going to trade for a cornerback? When are we going to sign a cornerback? Because they're that worried. Offensively, though, I do think people are a little bit curious about Kevin Patullo play calling because Philadelphia won that game against Dallas. Their offense was very good. Jalen Hurts was very, on target, on time, ran the football well. Saquon only had 60 yards on the ground. 1 target for A.J. Brown, only 3 for Devontae Smith. I think Kevin Patullo, being a first-time play caller, was being a little bit over-conservative. Eagle fans want to see him do a little bit more of the attacking because they have that great, obviously, weapon set that you talked about earlier.
That's a good question mark and a good point with Kellen Moore moving on and you guys promoted from within. How is that play calling going to look? And there was a lot of hate on Jalen Hurts last week with the ADOT stuff. I don't care, dude. Win the game. Mahomes has been crapped on for 2 years about ADOT.
Yeah.
Who cares? Win the game. Take what the defense gives you and win the freaking game. Now, that is going to be interesting to see if there's any wrinkles the new play caller can present. I'm concerned a little bit just from week 1 Chiefs and the Spags defense for sure. They came out flat. They were not ready. They were not prepared. Yeah. They were missing assignments. They were tripping over each other. And that's not even to include Worthy and Kelce running into each other as well and Worthy being out. So I have some concerns on defense for sure. But if I go back to what you said at the beginning, I was very excited to have Adoree Jackson starting. I was very excited about that, especially considering you were going to have Tyquan Thornton and Worthy, who was going to be the primary guy for sure. And now you don't have Worthy. And that is a big blow considering Rice is also suspended. I do think the Chiefs offense will come in a little bit more prepared than they were last week because you lost Worthy 3 plays in. It's kind of like the Eagles defense losing Jalen Carter literally before the first play because he was being an idiot. But you guys had to adjust on the fly on defense. Then the Chiefs had to adjust on the fly on offense. The only bummer now is Worthy's not going to be out there at all, but you will have Jalen Carter. So, okay, cornerback 2, play calling. Where do you think the Eagles are going to maybe present some unfair matchups even on the defensive side of the ball?
I think front 7, going back to the Super Bowl, is something that everybody outside Philadelphia has overlooked in terms of the Eagles because the entire storyline was like the Eagles lose all these defensive pieces. They lost Milton Williams, the highest paid free agent in all of football, the New England Patriots, defensive lineman. Josh Sweat got a massive contract. He was a massive game wrecker in the Super Bowl. And yet internally, I think most Eagle fans would argue that the front 7, even from linebacker up, is maybe better than it was last year. First off, you have Jihaad Campbell, the rookie linebacker, who Eagle fans think is literally the second coming of Fred Warner. They think, and I agree, but people think this kid is going to be absolutely insanely legit. He had one of the highest grades of any defender, of all the rookie defenders in week 1, alongside the All-Pro Zack Baun. That is a matchup nightmare for anybody, not named the Kansas City Chiefs. And I do think the pass rushers are going to really try to flex their muscles in this game. They got after Dak Prescott, but they didn't get a sack. And yet Josh Uche, who's a brand new free agent addition, was the highest graded pass rusher of the entire week 1, higher than Nick Bonita and higher than Trey Hendrickson. Like his pass rush win rate was almost 50%. He just didn't quite get to Dak Prescott. And so you go back to the Super Bowl, the only reason the Kansas City Chiefs could move the ball is because Mahomes had no time. I mean, he literally was hit on every single play, sacked 5-6 times, whatever the number was, and you just really seemed to rattle him. And I think Philadelphia, with Jalen Carter back this week, who, yes, is an idiot, but if I was the Chiefs, I mean, he's going to be extra motivated to play very well in this game. I'd be terrified of Jalen Carter. The front 4 and the front 7 are where I think Philadelphia can really get after Patrick Mahomes. And hopefully they can emphasize the pressure on the quarterback because they're not as worried about George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb beating them. It's Tyquan Thornton, shout out Baylor, my alma mater, and then, Juju Smith-Schuster, whoever else you guys have there on the outside. So I do think if the Chiefs cannot protect Patrick Mahomes, and it's even half of what the Super Bowl game was, it could be a long day for Patrick Mahomes, which is crazy to think about, but Philadelphia has the blueprint. Why not just go ahead and execute it again?
Yeah, that's a big question. Xavier Worthy was on a podcast before week 1 dropped, and he said, hey, if you watch the film on the Super Bowl, he's like, some guys were open, but
I saw that,
Mahomes
yes.
had no time for that to actually form into a real play because the trenches were dominated. I do have a little bit more optimism about the Chiefs O-line, even though there's a weakness there on the left guard spot that does terrify me if it's Jalen Carter against Kingsley Suamataia. I don't love that because of the quick. Right. He did a pretty good job last week, but it's the quick losses that he can sustain. He just gets on random, very important downs. Will get instant L. And if you watch the Chargers game, one of those plays was 4th and 7, where Mahomes had to scramble right and Superman out of bounds throw to Hollywood for 50 yards. Well, Kingsley lost this fast. And Mahomes had to scramble out to try to make something happen. So that's a key matchup I'm going to watch, even though I do have a little more optimism as a whole because Josh Simmons already as a rookie looks more serviceable than any other left tackle the Chiefs had playing over there last year. In the Super Bowl, you had Joe Thuney's awesome. He's not a left tackle. So you had Joe Thuney at left tackle and Caliendo at left guard. I have a little bit more optimism there. I know you guys lost a couple key players in free agency, and when you say you think the D-line could be better this year, I think my hope is that'll be later in the season, because I think some of those guys are still going to need to figure it out, and they're on the rise. But hopefully they're not where you want them to be fully week 2 coming into Arrowhead.
Well, I mean, one of the main things that I'm very curious in this game, like defensively is one thing, and I do think it can be Philadelphia's defense gets after Patrick Mahomes. It's not going to be, at least I hope it is, but I don't think it's going to be the Super Bowl drubbing defensively that it was. My big question is going to be Steve Spagnuolo versus Philadelphia's offense, because the one thing about Philadelphia's offense that the outside world sees, that the inside world tries to defend against, is that the outside world will watch a game of Jalen Hurts against the Cowboys, and he, dinks and dunks and checks down and runs the football and doesn't hit a 50-yard bomb to A.J. Brown, and they go, oh, the Eagles' offense is just so basic, and I can't believe they don't utilize these weapons. And yet, if you go back and watch the Super Bowl, that was maybe Jalen Hurts' best game as a pro. He carved up Steve Spagnuolo's defense without Saquon Barkley. And so as you go into this game, obviously Spagnuolo is going to have adjustments. I mean, they're clearly going to have to look at the game film from Super Bowl 59 and go, how do we make sure this doesn't happen? But how are the Eagles going to counter? And is that going to be more Saquon Barkley? Are they going to find ways to get him maybe on the outside running instead of the inside? Because they don't run him enough on the outside, in my opinion. Or are they just going to let Jalen Hurts loose? Because it does feel like in these big games, especially against the top AFC quarterbacks and Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, in those games where Philadelphia knows they need to score points to win, they just unleash the handcuffs from Jalen Hurts sometime. They let him throw the football deep, and he's done a very good job. His record versus Mahomes, minus the other Super Bowl, but at least statistically, has been fantastic. And so the chess match of the second rematch in really less than 3 games, because you go back to the Super Bowl was 2 games ago, Spags versus Hurts with a new offensive coordinator. How is Philadelphia going to attack? And are they going to just let him do whatever he wants and throw like crazy? Are they going to be more conservative because they trust the defense versus Mahomes in that offense? That, to me, is the big question mark this weekend, is how is Philadelphia going to attack the Chief defense?
Well, that's a big problem to me about the Eagles offense, is because you said Jalen Hurts did this without Saquon, but Saquon was on the field, and you have to account for that. Yeah, so the Chiefs did a decent job of limiting the run. They've done that time and time again, really. Derrick Henry, I don't know that it really matters. They've done a good job of not allowing the game to be decided on the ground. But because you have to account for somebody like Saquon, it's really opening up some of these pass catchers. Jalen Hurts made him pay. I actually feel a little bit better about the Chiefs defense in the Super Bowl than I did the offense, because of the pick six, the fumble that was recovered. They had some short fields. I felt like, minus those turnovers, I think the defense was just put in a couple tough spots there. But that was then. This is now. I will say this. The Eagles are going to look at that film from the Chargers and see that on play action, how good Herbert was. And on third downs, he had 1 incompletion and he had 2 touchdowns. I do have some concerns because Saquon Barkley is way better than Omarion Hampton, and I liked him coming out of the draft. And the Chiefs were struggling off of play action, trying to account for Omarion Hampton. Well, now you got to account for Saquon Barkley. So it is, on paper, a pretty big mismatch in a lot of key areas. And if the defense for the Chiefs doesn't make a pretty big stride in how they were able to cover, and the pass rush that was literally non-existent in that game against the Chargers, if they don't turn things up a notch and get a couple things figured out, which hopefully they will, but I don't think it's going to be a bloodbath, but I have trouble in my head of being like, the Chiefs are going to win this game if they look anything like they did against the Chargers. I'm less worried, I think, about the Chiefs offense, even though the Eagles defense is really good. You're going to probably have to put up like 30 points to win this game. I said that in the Super Bowl. People roasted me. They're like, you said it. I'm like, I said if the Chiefs win this game, in order for them to win, they need at least 30 points. And I was right. Take away that pick six, the fumble on the short field. If you got about 30, it was going to be a much closer game. But obviously it was 40-6 or whatever it was not close. So you have to play a clean game against a team as good as the Eagles, and you've got to come out firing. another concern is just you don't have Worthy. So you don't have Rice, you don't have Worthy. You're going to have to figure it out. You don't really have a run game either, not a dynamic run game. So on paper, it's a pretty big mismatch. My head says Eagles are probably winning, but my heart says I've seen mismatches so many times in the Patrick Mahomes era, even Super Bowls against maybe the Eagles team a couple years ago or the 49ers teams for sure. I'm very curious to see how this plays out, but how do you have this game going? Let us know, because I feel like I know where you're going with this.
Well, obviously, I'm leaning heavily towards Philadelphia, but if there is an area where I think most Eagle fans are a little bit concerned here, it is. I mean, is Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid going to lay another dud against the same team twice in a row? I mean, that to me is the dark horse here. Out of offense, defense, Saquon, this, whatever, Xavier Worthy out. Are we really about to see Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid get embarrassed a second time? And I it's possible. I think you just laid out all the points why Philadelphia should be favored in this game, will be favored in this game, probably should win this game, and I'm picking them to win. I mean, I think they could win by 10 plus, just because I think that Kansas City, without Worthy and where they're at defensively, and obviously with the offensive line, the Eagles should be able to win. But I just do have a little bit of an angel or demon on their shoulder, whatever you want to call it, saying, is Andy Reid really going to get cooked again? Because I respect Andy Reid too much to think about that. Either way, I do think you're going to see Philadelphia win. I'm going 27-20 in this one. It could be more. It also could be less. We could, wake up in the second half and it's 14-10 or it's 10-7. It could be very low scoring where both offenses are struggling, defenses are playing well, and then it comes down to Hurts versus Mahomes in the fourth quarter, who pulls it out and gets the win. But I go 27-20 Philadelphia.
It's one of these games where both teams are good and well coached. And you cannot make mistakes. You cannot have the errors. So whoever wins the turnover battle in this one, I think could very well take it, or it's going to be very close. I said the same thing about the Ravens and the Bills. I thought the Ravens were the better team on paper. I said if they win the turnover battle, they are winning this game. And the Bills ended up performing a miracle comeback in the fourth quarter.
It really was.
That's kind of how I see this one on paper. Look at it position group by position group, and really Vic Fangio as the DC and the problems he's given Mahomes throughout his career, not just in the Super Bowl, way before that. Some of Mahomes' worst ever games was against the Vic Fangio defense. Yeah, you look at it all on paper and it's like, the Eagles are probably better in most categories here, but can the Chiefs force an error, a mistake? Can they capitalize on some random kick return, special teams blunder? If you could take advantage of some mistake somewhere, that's where they could make you pay. It's any given Sunday. It's going to be a good one. Super Bowl, quote unquote, rematch. It's, even if the Chiefs win, man, it's not going to avenge a Super Bowl blowout. It's just not. But it's week by week in 2025 right now, and the Chiefs really need to come out of this, if possible, 1-1, because 0-2, don't love that one.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be fascinating. We're going to learn a lot. Week one, you can only take so much. Week two, though, it starts to get a little more serious here, and I think we're going to learn a ton about both football teams. Now, of course, plenty more stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks, including tomorrow. We'll be streaming the game. You guys can go and join us, myself and Josh Davis, on this channel. So subscribe, drop a like, and come hang out. If you've never watched a game stream, it is a ton of fun. Also, if one of you guys correctly predicts Jalen Hurts' passing yard numbers, his touchdowns, and it was interceptions, right? Those three. One of you guys gets it right, I'll go ahead and choose you to win your own version of the Saquon Barkley giveaway here, although I announced the winner early on, so trying to give away two, but we'll see. Plenty more stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks. Hopefully, the next time we talk, Philadelphia will be 2-0. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.